around the assembly. See how my little mount works. Okay, so I test fit to make sure that my timing chain tensioner fits on properly. I always test fit to make sure first before I start applying Loctite and whatnot. This, you don't have to use Loctite, but I'm going to use a little bit of Loctite, just a little bit of blue Loctite, just to make sure it stays locked in there. Wouldn't want this to come off. Now we got to put the oil pump tensioner pulley on. This little guy right here. Oh, what I noticed is on the oil pump tensioner, this spring actually locks in right here. It sits like this and pushes against it, I believe, from what I remember. Problem with that. That does not work. Why is that not working? So you know what? We can put that on after we put the chain on. Okay, so the oil pump timing chain sprocket on the crankshaft has a dot on the right hand side. You can see it there. The color coded timing link, or color coded link, lines up with that dot. And down here, it's the opposite side. There's the dot, and on the sprocket itself, there's a flat on this side that for keying onto the oil pump shaft. This nut right here is 21 foot-pounds, and the timing chain tensioner has a spring on it, and that bolt right there is 7 foot-pounds. That's what the manual states. So that's all set up right there. Okay, so here's my intake VVT or intake cam. Here's my exhaust cam. The VVT sprocket has a notch right there, and that notch lines up with the pin on the end of the camshaft. If you look at the old gear, you can see that this was sitting like this, because this mark right here lines up with this little mark right here. There's actually a mark there. It looks like machine work, but there's a mark. That's what the mechanic on the manual states. So this mark will line up with that mark when it's all locked, because this thing has to be able to turn, and you're supposed to squirt air down in it, and it unlocks it and locks it. So you got to make sure that this thing is locked. So I think that's where the air part comes in. So if you look on the old one, there's 2 circles right there. You see the oil marks? That's because these, which marks is it? Oh, it's this top one. Because this one right here and this hole down here on the end of the camshaft squirts oil into this. And here is where the oil goes down through from the solenoids. So oil probably comes in this big port here and then squirts into these 2 small ports, or vice versa. Not exactly sure how that works. So what I do, slide it on. There it is. And this thing moves back and forth. Now it's locked. So it moved all the way to the left and then all the way to the right, and now it's locked. You can feel that it's locked. So to unlock it, I believe that hole right there, I'll look up the instructions, but I believe that hole, you put tape over these 2 holes and you blow air down that hole, and that'll unlock the timing gear. And then on the exhaust side's a little different. It also comes with a new bolt. I'm gonna use a little Loctite on it because I believe in Loctite. Just blue Loctite, not the red stuff. That stuff's insane. And this bolt, I believe, is 41 foot-pounds. I'll have to look it up. Okay, now this gear here, the exhaust side, has similar things going on with it. That marker, that slot right there is for the dowel that sticks out to locate it, and those 2 holes, that hole right there lines up with the hole that's on the left side of that dowel, and this hole right here lines up here. You can get it all on there. This thing also has free movement to it also. Now this one's already locked. Now I have to figure out how to unlock that. I think you can blow whole air down in it to verify that this thing will advance and retard before I tighten it all up. I don't know if that one's supposed to lock or if they're both supposed to be in the locked position when you set up the timing. I'm not sure. I'll check that out right now. Now these I will check. I'll actually use the torque on them. Set the torque properly. So once I set the torque, then I'll be back with you. Okay, so I looked it up. The camshaft timing gear bolts are 40 foot-pounds, and the manual shows just putting a crescent wrench right here on the camshaft. There's one on both sides. So when you go to torque it down, you can hold the camshaft there and tighten your the bolts down. And then if you see, there's a mark right here. That mark will be straight up and down on the timing chain. We'll get to that in a minute. I have to first figure out what hole I need to blow air down into to unlock the cam gear so I can rotate it. Verify that they both work. And this one I have to do the same thing. Blow air in it and then rotate. I'll do a little video when I find it. Alright, so I got the timing set up. You can see that mark on top of the exhaust gear is lined up with the color link, and it's in line with that center port on the oiler. So that's supposed to be straight up and down with the motor. And then this one is on a certain degree and is lined up with that notch that I was showing you earlier, right next to the bolt there. That little black notch there, that's actually the timing mark right there. There's a little land and a slot right there. That slot is the timing mark. Also, the cam gears are lined up. If you look at them, they're both pointed in like that direction. And if you look at the picture on the manual, that's how it looks. The picture is deceiving, but that's how it lines up. And then what you do is you put the timing chain tensioner on. Slides on that post right there. There's a dowel. And then what I had to do was I lined up this mark and my mark down there on the oil pump or on the crankshaft. So see the colored link and the dot right there. And this is straight up and down. That's all timed. So once I had that mark and this mark, this side wanted to sit back over here. So this notch was actually back here. So what I had to do was pull this camshaft toward me, put the chain on, put the link, the colored link on, and then pull on the tensioner down here to keep the chain taut. And then I made a hook with some welding wire so I can unhook this once I put the timing cover on. Because if you let it go, the chain will slip and your timing will be off. I don't want that to happen. So this wire is holding it. So I'll end up just cutting it here, and popping that wire out. The hook I made hooks on to right here. So I made a notch there, sits in there, and that slot comes up and over and then bends over here. So when I get the wire off, all I gotta do is push down on the wire and pull it away, and the wire will come out. And that's it. Looks like the timing's all done, at least set up. Now I just have to make sure I keep the timing set straight without messing with it, because the tensioner is on the cover right there. And that won't go on until the tensioner won't go on until I put the cover back on. So that's the next step. Deal with the cover. Okay, so on this new timing chain tensioner, these two pins, this locks it into place or holds it open. So then when you put it into the tensioner, release the tension, this plunger comes out and pushes on the tensioner rail. But these pins were sticking out, and no matter what I did to smash them down, they would not go down far enough, so I had to use a grinder, smoothing them out. Cut off just a little bit so it would slide into the... Okay, so the water pump or the thermostat housing bolts onto the back side of this, back side of the timing cover, and this mount that holds the alternator on, and the wing here, that has to be removed along with this to get it out. Now, if I had the AC pump off and out of the way when I pulled the timing cover, it probably would have dropped out. So I would recommend that when you do the job to pull the AC compressor and try to zip tie it out of the way. It didn't look like there was much movement to it, so I figured that would be a hassle also. So I didn't do that. I ended up having to unbolt this thermostat housing and drop the timing cover down and out. And when I brought it back in, I just now bolted this on. So you have to bolt this on, and then you have to bolt this on. But the problem is there's a bolt hole down below this foot right here, down there, straight where my finger would be, bolts onto the block. I can't get to that bolt now, but I figured I'd rather be missing the one bolt on this mount for my alternator, because the alternator's got plenty of extra support along with this housing here. It's got plenty of support without that bolt. To where if it's missing the bolts, fine. If I had left, you couldn't get to the bolts, these bolts, had this been in place. So I just screw that bolt, and hopefully it doesn't break off the water pump mount, but I don't think it will. I think the 3 bolts will be plenty. I think it'll be fine. Let's see if there's a rattle. No rattle. Perfect. Just another timing job done. All right, here we go for after the test drive. Starts revving perfectly. So I had a little bit of a noise when I started it this last time around, and I ran around the block. The noise went away when I first started it. There was a rattle like in the timing chain. I'm thinking it just had to do with the tensioner having to, pressurize oil, and then maybe even get the oil rushing through the VVT solenoids. So after that, it ran perfectly. It starts right up. It's not making any noise. Starts right up nice and smooth. I trust I did a good job. Alright, so you heard it. Cold start. Next day after I finished the project. Started right up, no problems, no rattle. Runs good. That was definitely a process. New water pump. Solenoids I did last year. New timing set. New valve cover gasket. There's 2 gaskets right underneath where the solenoids are. Underneath the cover, underneath the valve cover, there's these 2 gaskets that are literally shaped like that. Believe it or not. Anyways, they cover the 3 ports I showed you earlier when you have to put air down in those. That's where those gaskets go to unlock the VVTs to check them. I put oil in it. I ran the coolant in it yesterday, heated it up, so I should have all the air out of the lines. I can take my funnel off. I still gotta put the suspension together. I'll do that today. It's only about a half an hour job. Half an hour maybe. So we got a new timing set, new water pump, new valve cover seal, the camshaft seals. What else did I get? New oil, new coolant. Got 185,000 miles. I did struts recently, front brakes. I just put tires on it, so I spent about $1,000. So this thing is taking me to work and back. I've put on about 100,000 miles in 4 years, and it's been good. I think this car is good to go. Should be able to run another 100,000 miles. Hopefully nothing more major comes up. Everything's looking solid. Alright, so I took my VVT apart. This is the one on the exhaust cam. So this spring's in here. Just pop the spring out. And then I used a pair of channel locks to pull these 5-point looking Torx out. And then when you pick it up, it comes off the bottom. And you got your lock pin. And then you got your, this is like a metal washer inside here. So we got, there's nothing holding it, so it should turn, so it does turn. Now I wouldn't recommend doing this with one that you're going to use. This is the old one, throwing this one away. looks like this pin, everything looks okay here. Maybe it wasn't locking into this slot here. That's solid in there. So it looks like oil comes through, pushes the oil comes through here, pushes the pin up. Once we do this and allow this to move, okay, well, that's that one. That one looks like it's okay. Let's see this other one. Okay, these gears had 185,000 miles on them, so I'm not too concerned about them, and I'm definitely not going to use it. Come on. That like this. Might get lucky here. Man, I can't get this one. I got all those. Can't get that last one. It looks like this one's locked with those two identifying marks. Makes me wonder what was causing it to rattle. Was the system losing oil or not releasing pressure or what? There's no way I'm going to get that off. Well, that pretty much concludes this video. Alright, so this is the intake side. I ended up cutting the bolt off. The other ones I was able to get with channel locks. I ended up just cutting it off. And inside here, so this moves. So back and forth inside. There's this pin that drops down. Now this is all messed up because I took the bolts out. And then it doesn't move. And then there's this spring that sits against the back side of the cover. Pop the pin out. And then the solenoids allow oil to go through. There's a locating dowel here also. Now, the one thing about hydraulics, you can't always see what the problem is. So it's possible that maybe oil was seeping past, or this thing just wasn't returning all the way back to its resting position, or what the deal is. That's pressed in there. That's the pin slides into that slot. Nothing shows any actual damage, so it makes me wonder why it does what it does. That's why I took it apart, because I don't quite understand why there'd be an issue, or what. I'm not actually seeing any issue. That's the mind-boggling thing about this. But you know, engineers do what engineers do. So that's how that's supposed to work, though. I figured I'd make a video on what's inside. All I know is changing those out fixed my problem. But I also did a new timing tensioner, or chain tensioner, and a whole new timing set. So